Hello and welcome to Neuroshambles, the podcast that aims to shine a light into some of the murkier corners of what it's like to parent neurodivergent kids. I'm Mark Allen, and every episode I'm going to be swapping stories with my guests about some of the frankly ludicrous nonsense we have to deal with on a daily basis. So, if you're anything like me and you're feeling frazzled, overwhelmed and pretty much an outcast from polite society, join me. Hello and welcome to Neuroshambles. This is the very first episode of season 2. So in reality, it's actually episode 21. If you are a newcomer to Neuroshambles, then you might want to check season 1 first because there's 20 episodes to get involved in there. But if you're not a newcomer to Neuroshambles, welcome back. Wow, that was a long summer holidays, wasn't it? Hope you all coped okay. Hope it wasn't too fraught all of the time and you had some moments of levity. On my part, you know, we've had some pretty bumpy moments in our household over the summer, but there have also been some genuinely lovely moments that I'm holding on to. So I think I'm going to chalk it up as an overall win and then we can move on, right? So as it's a new season, I thought it might be useful to kind of recap on my family setup because I obviously asked guests about theirs, but it might be worth just sort of updating you all on my family setup because, the start of season 1, I listened back to that and things have changed a lot since then. It's frightening how much has happened in less than a year. So I'll start with my eldest, Jay, who is 11 now, and he is diagnosed autistic ADHD with a very strong PDA profile. Now, to complement this, I also have Otto, who is 9 and also diagnosed autistic ADHD, but he is a very different profile from Jay. He's much more anxiety-based in that sense. Now, I initially thought he had PDA. I think if we listen back to some of the earlier episodes, I thought he had PDA. But the more I learn about PDA and how that presents and seeing that in the wild with Jay, it's not a PDA profile as we know it. So I don't think that it's fair to label him with that. Now, rounding up my roster of neurodivergent hooligans, I've also got a 7-year-old daughter called India, who I started out in the last season describing as suspected neurotypical. I've since had to update that as season 1 progressed. I think it's fair to say that she is now suspected autistic. She is now firmly on the long, bumpy pathway to diagnosis at the moment. She passed her stage 1 assessment and is now like 308th in line or whatever the fuck it is. She's probably nearer to the throne of the England than she is to getting a diagnosis. But anyway, we sort of understand that she's autistic and we're happy to kind of just treat her as such. It makes it easier and just welcome aboard, you know. Another crucial piece of the neuroshambolic jigsaw in our household is my ex-partner and wonderful co-parent, Tam, who is also diagnosed autistic ADHD. And again, that happened during season 1. So Christ knows what surprises are waiting for us in season 2. Let's see, shall we? And then last and very often least in this household is me. I'm going to say undiagnosed neurotypical, I think. I've had several guests who have tried to out me as a neurodivergent, and to be honest, I'm honoured to be included amongst your number. But for now, I don't think I do need a diagnosis for it, so I'll just crack on believing that I'm a normie. So, after a brief whistle-stop tour of all the neurotypes at play in my household, I think we're all up to speed now, so you can see why the show is called Neuroshambles, hopefully. Anyway, enough of all this nonsense. We have a brand new season to kick off, so let's get started.
Meet the guest.
So this week's guest is someone that I've, not in a creepy way, but I kind of headhunted from my local Facebook autism support group because I just really love the honesty and the humour of her posts, and I thought that she'd have a lot to say about this particular topic of the week. So I am delighted that she's agreed to come and chat to me. Welcome to the show. It's Dee McMahon. How you doing, Dee?
Hi. I'm good. Thanks for the headhunting.
You're more than welcome. So obviously when I talk to any of my guests on Neuroshambles, it's really important to get a sense of your setup. So tell me what you're dealing with there, Dee. What neurodivergencies are at play in your household?
Well, it's like a pick a mix, basically. So I've got 3 kids, and my eldest, Connor, is autistic, ADHD and anxiety disorder. He's 16. Then I've got my middle one, which is Poppy, and she is ADHD with quite significant learning difficulties as well, like dyslexia and dyscalculia and working memory issues and receptive language, sort of more like the language disorders that you have, but she doesn't have the autism diagnosis, sort of everything but, really.
Right, okay.
Sometimes I think, I'm not sure. And then Rory, the baby, I say he's a baby, he's 9 now, so he's autistic as well.
What about you guys? Is there any neurodivergency with you lot?
Well,
with the grown-ups?
Well, I say that my husband definitely is, and my husband says that I definitely am. So there's a massive.
Let me settle this then. You definitely both are.
Yeah. There's a massive chance that we probably both are. He's looking at me. He's actually giving me the eyeball as we speak. But anyway, so there you go, in a nutshell. That's
true neuroshambolic household you've got
McMahon
going on.
Neuroshambles in a nutshell,
Nice.
indeed. Yes.
Well, thank you for introducing your neuroshambolic family. Let's crack on with the topic of the week, because there's loads to uncover here, and it's going to be a good one.
What's the topic of the week?
So this week's topic is one of those ones that we discuss on Neuroshambles where you literally can't avoid it. Right, it's something that we've got to navigate at least 3 times a day, usually more, and that is the subject of food. Because there are no workarounds to this, right? As exceptional as our kids are, they're not exempt from one of the basic human needs, which is that they have to eat to survive. Now, for many parents of neurodivergent kids, the process of trying to get food into their kids is, for want of a better expression, a living fucking nightmare. And one of the things, and I don't know if you feel like this, but one of the things that really gets to me is when people describe them as being picky eaters.
I wish they were just picky eaters.
Yeah.
There's picky, and then there's autistic children with...
Yes, and there are so many reasons for these difficulties. There's so many factors at play, which is why I wanted to kind of take that subject of food and just really dive into it and unpick it and see what we can uncover.
Sure. It's like the perfect storm in a way, I think, the whole food thing. And I think that's probably why so many families with autistic children have problems with food, because it is literally like the perfect storm of sensory avoidance or seeking or PDA, or it's just like a minefield of fun.
It's a minefield, isn't it? Yeah. I will start out by saying I bloody love food. I enjoy all food, genuinely. There's one food that I'm not really that fussed about, and that's celery. But it's, again, one of those, like, if it's in a dish, I'll eat it.
You'd eat it,
Might
right?
be my
Yeah,
favourite, right? But texture for my kids is like a massive problem, and it's something that I often overlook when it comes to sort of their avoidance of certain types of food, because they're so sensory. It makes sense, right? They're so sensory in everything else they do. Why is the texture of food not a thing? It's in your mouth. You know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we'll go on to more about Rory in a minute, my little one, but the big one, he's always had, like, he's been huge with texture. I mean, like, he loves crunchy things, apples, and I mean, this boy's obsessed with apples. I mean,
apples
not
is
like
massive in our house as well.
And not just like, oh, they're nice. I mean, like mad keen on apples. Like, you find apples everywhere. I found apple cores under his pillow, like in his dressing gown pocket. Sometimes he'll bite a bit of an apple, and if it's not the right texture, then you'll find that apple with a bite taken out of it. And
that drives me crazy. Jay does that all the time. He's like, "Oh, an apple! I love an apple," and then he'll take one bite out of it and go, "It's too spungy," and then he'll just leave it.
And then just leave
spongy. It's an apple, dude.
I know.
I do get what he means. I understand it.
Or sometimes, not to be outdone, Connor will just like bite a bit of apple, and if it is too spongy or not quite right, he'll just spill it out, which is always nice. And I'm finding like chunks of apple that have been spat out in disgust on the stairs, you know what I mean, as he's like running upstairs back to his computer again. There's just chunks of apple flying around the house, hanging about on the stairs. In summer, There's so many apple cores in his room. He's had quite a bad fly situation going on. Like fruit flies in my son's bedroom.
It's funny because I think apples are quite symptomatic of this thing, right? They're fraught with danger in so many ways because they're fruit. All fruit is by nature inconsistent, right? Because they could have different levels of ripeness. They could be a different type of fruit. They could have been out for a bit longer than it was expected or not in the fridge. So they change fucking daily. So obviously for autistic children, you want this uniformity of experience, right? You want to go, I know what I'm getting from this apple. It's a wet crunch. It tastes a bit sharp. I'm on board with it, right? But they don't, that's not what happens because it depends on so many things.
It is a roll of the dice. I've had a fair few like apples chucked at me as well, where they were not the right apples. My youngest one, Rory, he defines berries. He's got his own season of berries. Like he'll eat strawberries and stuff. Blueberries, if you're lucky.
Blueberries are a nightmare.
They are really hard work.
You can get two blueberries in the same punnet, and one is absolutely great, and the other one tastes like dirt.
100%. Absolutely, that's why they're so difficult. So he's like eating one blueberry out of the punnet and then spitting the other one out in the bin.
As I say, with the kind of fruit, this uniformity of experience is so important. So like another one is chips. My kids like chips, but if you get some frozen chips, like you get small ones and big ones and fat ones and thin ones and little endy bits, and they cook in slightly different ways because it's a bit of a hot bit of the oven. So when I'm serving up chips to Jay, it's fucking terrifying. Because I'm like, he needs to eat, right? He's probably not eaten much today. So I'm choosing the chips. I'm auditioning the chips for his palate. Like looking at which ones I think he's going to tolerate. And he'll just look at them and go, no. I say, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah, chips are hard. I'll tell you what else I find tricky with texture as well is my son's got a gag reflex, so the big one, Connor, and he will vomit where he stands. Like, so it's not just like the meltdown you're trying to avoid. He will just like for a tomato, for example. So he's 16, right? So now I think he's sort of like, right, come on, I'm a man, I can eat a tomato, God. And the other day he was at the dinner table and like we were messing on, and I stupidly said to him, yeah, you can do whatever it is you wanted to do, but only if you eat this tomato, so this little cherry tomato. And he's like, yeah, I can do that. And he literally like put it in his mouth, bit into it, and then chunned it.
Oh, God.
She's like, oh no, you've done it to yourself again, Dee, you know what I mean? But it was, you just can't cope with things like spurting in his mouth.
Yeah, totally. I get that. I mean, I do like tomatoes, but I can see how that's appalling. And same with mushrooms. I love mushrooms, but again, I can see why people are weirded out by the spongy
slimy.
texture.
Yeah, I love. There's nothing I don't like.
I think uniformity of texture is really important. I think that because, you know, they need to know what they're getting, right? If you think about it, there's low level anxiety with all food, with mine certainly. So it's not just like, oh, I'll just eat that. It's like, if that goes wrong, that's going to be appalling. So that's why there are things like Pringles. My kids love Pringles because they're every single time exactly the same. You know what you're getting, right? Cream crackers, another one. Jacob's cream crackers are massive in our household.
Oh my God, what is it with crackers? They're like they honestly, it's like they're a habit worse than smack, basically.
But you know what you're getting. That's what it is,
absolutely.
Right?
But my son, because he's like such a sensory seeker, he the big one. He likes chili flakes. Loves it. He puts chili on absolutely everything. That boy does.
It's funny, isn't it? So I think another, and I don't quite know where this one fits, but in terms of, it's not just texture, but temperature is a big thing in our household as well. Like, my kids are very sensitive to temperature of food. So Jay has to have his food really hot. Otto, literally the opposite. If it's even close to thinking about being warm, he freaks out. He'll touch it with his tongue and then he'll just start panicking. He'll be like, it's too hot, and he'll start crying. So if I make pizza for them, I've got to have different sittings. So like Jay, straight out of the oven into his mouth, just scoop it in. India is more reasonable in sort of needs it in the middle a little bit, and then Otto has to have his pretty much stone cold. It's like fucking Goldilocks in my house.
But isn't it? remember when it was like that, like when they were little, both boys were insane about the temperature of their milk. Connor would go mental. Even when he was like little, he would just scream and scream and scream, and until the temperature was just right of his milk. And Rory now, I've actually got it down to a fine art now. If you pour a bit of milk in his plastic cup, as long as you put it 3/3 of the way full, then put it in the microwave for 40 seconds, then he'll drink it. Do it for any way other than that, that ain't going down.
Yeah, Jay does this thing where he makes himself warm milk, but he puts it in for like 4 minutes or something. So like it's really hot. And then he'll blame the microwave, and then he'll leave it for a bit, and then it gets a skin on it, and then he'll complain about the skin on it, and so we don't drink the milk.
Nice, that's helpful.
It is.
I'm like, milk is like, oh my God, I buy milk all the time. Like, I'm just buying milk like it's going out of fashion.
Have you ever thought it might be cheaper to just buy a cow?
A cow, yeah. And an apple tree.
Yeah, you're in business then. You're so close to subsistence farming.
I know, innit?
So another of the obvious issues with food isn't just the texture, it's the flavour. Right, this is a huge thing, and like the thing is, Jay's taste buds are phenomenal. Like it's crazy how he can pick a specific type of herb out of a dish that's got loads of different things in.
Yeah,
like he'll pick it out. Has that got dill in it? It's like yes. He was like, thought so, not having it. Whatever. Actually, he does quite like dill. Dill was a bad example. He will literally just eat dill by the fistful.
Oh, you're lucky. Our little one wouldn't eat anything with green on it. He doesn't have anything green on it at all. Like, so he'll eat, this is how mad it is. He'll eat calamari, right? Loves a bit of squid with a bit of breadcrumbs in it. But you put any parsley on that squid, it's not happening.
Forget about it.
Do you know what I mean? But in terms of taste, I think we spoke about the spice and stuff. But
that's the thing with Jay as well. It's interesting. Does he have to have it on there? Like, if you run out of chili flakes, would he not eat the food?
He'd be pissed off that it was bland.
Right, but would he still eat it, or would he be like, nah?
No, possibly. He would possibly eat a little bit, and then you'll get a bit of a meltdown, a massive meltdown, basically. And whereas with Rory, he wouldn't eat it at all if it wasn't up to his standards. Not that he eats spice anyway. And Poppy, our middle one, doesn't eat any spice. Get this. She doesn't eat fish. Ugh, don't give me fish. That's disgusting. I hate fish, but I'll eat sushi. Oh, I love a bit of sushi. What?
Don't cook the fish. I'll have it raw.
I'll have it raw. That's absolutely fine. But you give me cooked fish, I'm not having it.
It's so funny, isn't it? It's like all of this, the flavor, trying to work out what the different flavour palettes of each of our kids are. And like you have to, I know that, for example, I can't give Otto herbs. And I can't put herbs on India's pizza. But if I miss out herbs on Jay's pizza, it's World War III. And so, like, it's a fucking minefield. They're constantly on edge. Like, no chef has to put up with this shit in the kitchen.
And what about brands? Like, honestly, my 9-year-old little boy can sniff out a phony Taste the Difference Cumberland sausage. If you try and big up a sausage that's not a Taste the Difference Cumberland sausage, he's got you. He's got your number.
Really?
Oh my God.
Because we order food for delivery, right?
Yeah.
Because no one wants to take their neurodivergent kids into a fucking food shop, right? I'll pay for the delivery every single time. But you get that moment, right? The morning of the food shop where it says, these are your substitutions. And you're like, oh, fucking no.
I know.
Please, God, no. Not like the safe foods. Please. Don't take my safe foods from me.
The panic sweats start where you think, oh my God, they've changed the Taste the Difference Cumberlands to a Taste the Difference just a standard pork sausage.
Yeah, I know. It's like this is never going to fly. He's going to spot it a mile off. Yeah, it's terrible. Like, I've got a friend of mine whose daughter has a very specific type of chocolate brioche that she'll eat. No other type of chocolate brioche. And it's the really expensive one. And my friend has tried to, like, switch it around. She's even kept the packaging from the old, like, posh one and tried to slip him in, but, like, fuck no. No, would you think, like... Because it's not about perception, is it? It's not about like what it looks like, it's what it tastes like. That's the important thing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Rory in particular, if he wasn't so scared of food, he could probably work for some government tasting agency.
Yes.
Situation.
I thought about this for Jay once as well, like as a food taster, but he wouldn't eat any food. So
that's
it'd have to
the
be
thing.
really specific. It'd have to be like pizza.
And you have to have a bin somewhere where he could just spill it out in, like, it's just like,
yeah.
Oh, God.
Another facet of my kids eating is that everything is Marmite to them, right? By which I mean they either love it or they hate it. There's nothing in the middle. There's not a like, it's not my favourite, but I'll eat it, right?
Yeah.
So my food exists pretty much on that plane all the time. You know, like I've got my favourites, but everything else is fine. I'll just eat it.
It's food, right? You eat it.
But with them, if it's not specifically what they want, they're not going to eat it, you know? And it's not, because I think neurotypical parents have this view of saying, well, if they're hungry enough, they'll eat it. It's like, I don't think my kids would. I think my kids would rather starve to death.
I can actually
eat a substandard sandwich or something.
He would literally starve himself until he's physically unable to stand up, basically, and then he still won't eat it. Yeah, it'd be a nightmare.
And this comes down to this belief that it's picky eating, and it's like it's not. It's a fear response.
Yeah, it's proper anxiety. I mean, that could go either way. I mean, we've had like occasions where with Rory, he would just not eat it, and before we realised that we had a real problem with food. Not even just like, oh, he's autistic and he's obviously got sensory or PDA, but it was something different. He will just not eat anything unless it's one of his safe foods, and if you push him, that will get even worse. But yeah, I mean, it then goes to the other side as well with Connor, because he is, I would say, really quite sensory in these foods, but also it's like a routine thing as well. Like if he doesn't have food at a certain time, that's enough to have like a massive meltdown, you know what I mean? Like,
is that because of the sort of the expectation of when it's going to come and the sort of routine of it, or is it just because by that point he's so hungry that he's just not thinking straight?
I mean, I think with Connor, he's got that whole interception thing about hunger anyway, but they both have. Rory does very rarely says he's hungry, and Connor will leave it, I think, until suddenly he's hungry, really hungry.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? But he eats quite often, but I think he's much more routine. So he'll get up at the moment, not being at school, and also the summer holidays, the routine sort of faded anyway, but he'll get up and then have breakfast, and then even if he's just had breakfast at 11 o'clock, once the clock strikes 12, that boy's having lunch, and it doesn't matter whatever you're doing, he's having lunch. You know what I mean? And like the whole Marmite thing can be true in different aspects as well, because it's 12 o'clock or nothing, and if it's nothing, then good luck. Sunday lunch is not a thing in our house. He can't cope. He hates the word brunch. That's enough to spin him out completely.
So what is it about Sunday dinner? What's his issue there? Because it's sort of in the middle of the afternoon.
Yeah, he cannot deal with that. No. It's either about 12 o'clock or 5 o'clock. And if you do it at 2 o'clock, then he's having lunch at 12 o'clock and you're doing him dinner at 5 o'clock. And he'll lovely have a nice roast dinner at 2 as well. Perfect. Have that for snack. So it's up to you how you want to do it, Mum, but that's my play.
It's funny that you said about him not being able to tell when he's hungry. Because Otto has this very same thing that he will be hungry and I'll know he's hungry, but he won't be able to tell me because he hasn't clocked it, right? And so he has this thing that I think I've said in a different episode. He has what I describe as not hanger, it's hangwish. It's like it's beyond anger. It's just absolute despair, and you've got to just get some food into him quick. Otherwise, he's just going to lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's more Rory that he just doesn't even recognise it. But with Connor, we tried. You know how it just makes me laugh. The whole like how close to the mark the whole food thing is with autism families with autism as well. Like, it's when we were basically we didn't realise that Connor was we knew there was something going on, but we didn't have a diagnosis. We didn't know much about autism because he was our first one. Your parents, because they're a different generation anyway, but because he was so challenging, my mum was like, just put him to bed without any dinner, would you? That's what you need to do. Just put him to bed without any dinner. And one day I was so despairing over what I was going to do with this kid, because he was obviously having massive meltdowns and massive amounts of pressure. I thought, right, that's it. And I actually muttered the words to him. Right, that's it. Go to your room and you're going to bed without any dinner. Wow. Fuck me. Did I regret that?
What happened? Because Jay would be fine, that's actually what I want.
Yeah, Rory would be absolutely fine. Connor went absolutely sick. And I think it was more of the case that he wasn't going to get a dinner at 5 o'clock that just span him out. He went mad. He smashed up the house, I'd never do it again. And I remember saying to my mum, I remember just thinking to my mum, not even saying it, just thinking, that's the last time I ever ask any advice.
It's funny, isn't it? Because that experience, that generation, that was such a different experience. When I was growing up as a kid, you didn't get to consult on the menu. You got given food. You sat down at the table and you weren't going to leave until it was eaten. Basically,
yeah, right. And if you didn't eat it, then tough shit.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? There's now else, but no, it's a completely different ball game, isn't it? I mean, it is if that would be it. I mean, to this day, Connor still says, and I think he was probably about 8 when that happened. He still says now, when he's 16, if I dare to moan about him not having lunch at dead on 12. He'll bring it up he's scarred for life. Even if I didn't put him to bed about any dinner, just the mere thought of it, he was oh yeah, here it comes. You're going to say it again, aren't you? Here it comes. Or you're going to put me to bed without any dinner, are you? Well, still completely just fucking nightmare. What are you meant to do?
Don't put him to bed without any dinner. That's certainly what you don't do. So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because it's something that I'm really interested in, is ARFID, which is obviously Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder, if our listeners haven't heard of this. And it is, it's a fucking nightmare, isn't it? It's ARFID is to selective eating what PDA is to autism. In that it's the paramilitary branch of it. It's the extremist wing of it.
Well, it is literally like we touched on earlier. It's Rory, this 100%. If he was surrounded by foods that were not his safe foods, he would not eat them, and he would be in hospital, because that is what that situation is. I mean, but also it's kind of where, for me, it's where the joking sort of subsides, because with him, I've been on the other end of it almost. Whereas you go through things with our kids and you think, oh, you laugh about that later, and you do. There are things with Rory where I think I'm just going to be scarred for life, basically.
Yeah,
you know
I totally get it. Yeah.
And it was hideous. He was weeks away from being hospitalised, not even weeks, I wouldn't think. So it basically all came to a sort of a head. I always knew from when he was a baby, he was different with food. My other two were always really good eaters as a baby. They had their, now I look back at it, neurodivergent ways, for sure, but not like Rory. I mean, he literally was born into the world a challenge with food. I mean, he was premature anyway, but he couldn't latch on. Breastfeeding stuff wasn't working because he couldn't latch on. Then he was tube fed for a bit. Then we were released from hospital, and then the health visitor came, and I knew he was losing loads of weight and stuff as a little one. And then they rushed him back into hospital again to be tube fed again. There was one point I just felt like a cow because I was constantly getting milk. And then when he got a bit of a bigger baby, it was just all about the milk. And then when you go to 6 months, don't you? And they're like, oh, everybody,
Just trying carrot and stuff.
Oh, yeah. At the time, it was baby-led weaning, whereas my other two was spoon-fed because they were older. But for him, it was baby-led weaning. There was nothing I could do to get that boy to pick up anything else other than milk. It just wasn't happening. And it got to a stage when he was about 1 and he was still just drinking milk, and the health visitors were like, you just get your standard health visitor who just doesn't have a Scooby, you know what I mean? And there were other things going on with him, even from that early age. And then he slowly started, the first thing he ate he was about 1, and he would eat like a jacket potato, but mashed up with butter. And that's what I could get him to eat, but only like teeny tiny amounts. And it really slowly progressed from there. And then, so he always ate very little and very small amounts of food, but also very small diversity of food, just like very sort of bland and soft and stuff. And then came to school time, and it just got worse because mainstream school anyway, was a nightmare for him. And then you chuck him in a dinner hall full of loads of children, of an environment he's not used to, full of loads of kids. And food that he doesn't want.
And so that's school dinners, basically.
Oh, my God. Well, school dinners were a nightmare. There was just he'd never ate anything. So quickly, I think in reception time, I realised first few weeks even of reception, he wasn't eating anything. So the school said to me, pack lunches. So I did pack lunches for him, but they would come back like not touched, and I mean like not touched.
And were they foods that you knew that he was okay eating typically?
Yeah.
But obviously, when you get to that environment, because Otto's the same sometimes, and I think Jay was as well. The more dysregulated he is, he just can't think about eating. He doesn't want to eat. It's a 100%. Huge thing, right?
He just was those foods. If I put them on a plate at home, he would have a little nibble at them and he'd eat them. Not like tons. We're talking like Rory amounts, but in school, nothing. Like literally nothing. And it was just a nightmare because school were just like trying to be helpful, but actually sort of like not being helpful at all. And then I was aware that he wasn't eating the packed lunches, so I was taking evidence of them, because at the time we were looking at the HCP, and I took some pictures of those packed lunch boxes that were just coming back not touched. Mm-hmm. Then it progressed a little bit more, and they said they'd put him in a side room with somebody to help a kid, another child, basically, is always the way to like eat with him and stuff. And I was pushing for somebody, because the other thing Rory needs now, even now, but definitely then, he needed to be fed. He couldn't feed himself,
Right,
if he had a yogurt, he wouldn't be feeding himself. You'd need to feed him. And not because he wasn't always able to do it, but because he would just like not even be aware of its presence half the time. And then he would sort of forget about it, lose focus on it. And especially in a school where there's so much other sensory distractions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course, in a mainstream school, you don't get that,
Because I guess if you're in that panic mode, your nervous system is kicking in. You're completely overwhelmed. Food is the last thing on your mind, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's like you're running out of a burning building. You're not going to stop and grab a fucking sandwich.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about.
Self-preservation.
Absolutely, and that's what we're talking about with ARFID. It actually it affects their neuro pathway so much that it affects their basic need, and that a basic need is to eat, right? So he just stopped eating. So the first 6 months of reception were really hard work. Then COVID hit, and he was out of school anyway. And then he was at home, so he was just being Rory about food, and that was fine. There was no demands. And then went back to school again, year 2. So suddenly all the fun years are gone. They were expecting him to sit down and do a load of work anyway, which Rory couldn't even hold a pencil anyway. Couldn't even hold a pencil. And then there was just no hope of him ever being in that environment and eating as well.
And then again, if you're not eating, your brain is not as sharp as it could be.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's a vicious circle, isn't it?
Absolutely. And so it just got worse and worse and worse. And then fast forward to year 4, beginning part, he had a new teacher, didn't deal with that very well at all. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. And he basically just stopped eating completely at school and wouldn't drink anything either. So he doesn't drink water. The only thing he drinks at home is milk, if it's at the right temperature. And he drinks Coca-Cola. And if you're lucky, he'll go for apple juice, but he will not have water at all. So at school, we had arranged for him to have like a bit of squash, like, you know, those little bottles of squash you can get. But even that, he wasn't drinking that. So he was going to school. He was so full of anxiety about going to school anyway. So in the morning, he'd have like a bite of brioche if I was lucky. He'd go through the whole of school without anything, eating or drinking anything. He'd come back and be so dysregulated because of school. I'd get a bit of popcorn into him if I was lucky. And then if it was a safe food at dinner time, maybe like a teeny tiny baby spoon of a jacket potato inside. And that was it. And it went like that for a long while. And he was losing a lot of weight. And then I felt like I was screaming from the rooftops as usual, right, with all these things. And I was like, help, this isn't normal.
Did you understand what ARFID was at that point?
So basically, Mascot, you're aware of our lovely charity in Brighton that look after us amazingly well. I'd put on some like desperate posts like, what the fuck is happening with my kid? This is not just even, I knew it wasn't just autistic sensory challenges. I knew it wasn't just that. And so there was a couple of ladies there basically had said that it sounds like this condition called ARFID, and I'd basically tapped into an ARFID Facebook support group, and I was sort of aware of that anyway. And then at the same time, when it got to such a degree where he had stopped eating at all, and we were going from day to day like that pattern, it got to a stage where I was crying out for help from Seaside View. I'd made it aware that like the hospital there that he got diagnosed with autism, I was making sounds for them because it was affecting his physical capability.
Yeah, of course.
Right? I mean, he would get every single cold and bug and illness under the sun. Like he'd be constantly sick. At the worst times, he couldn't walk up the stairs. He couldn't walk up our stairs. We've got like a one up, one down house. He couldn't walk. He couldn't make that walk up the stairs. I had to carry him up there. His bunk bed, where he shares with Connor, so Connor's on the bottom bunk and he's on the top. He couldn't even make that ladder. So, and I knew it was school that was the catalyst for this like latest wave of food avoidance, because it was his safe foods as well that he was avoiding, and I knew that was anxiety based, because get him in a summer holiday or like a school holiday, I'd get him eating again, you know. But I mean, when I say Rory will eat a safe food, he'll have about jacket potato. He could do about half a potato, a half a burger, like a little burger. He'll eat the insides of a pizza, those sorts of things. But I'm happy because I know that for Rory, that's a standard amount. Whereas rewind to last September, he wasn't even eating that, you know. And so it was just the weight was falling off him, and it was, you know, he was totally obvious that you could see a physical difference in him as well. And his physical capabilities and his mental health were just shocking, going through the floor basically. So
when you took him out of school, did that then make a big difference to the
I knew it was that. You know how you just like, I'm sure you've been here, Mark, where you've just, you know what I knew what it was, right?
It's school with Jay at the moment.
It's so hard going against the grain, because like with my big boy in school, as hard as school was for him, he never once school refused. He wanted to be there. He wants to learn. He wants to be in that environment. And if he didn't want to be, there's no way you could get Connor to do anything he doesn't want to do. There's no way. Poppy, massively social, even though she gets it wrong sometimes. She struggles with learning so much, but she'll go to school because she wants to see her friends, and so she'll do that. Again, very rarely school refuses unless it's an executive function thing. Rory is a completely different ball game. He just could not deal with the sensory overload of school, the demands of school. He just couldn't deal with it. And food was just the first thing to go, or the last, basically, because ultimately that was the reason why I took him out. Not because, I mean, his mental health was really, really failing as well, like from school, from the demands of school, but his physical health was the reason why I took him out. And I remember speaking to the head teacher, and the amount we think that mainstream schools don't know enough about autism. I'm telling you now, they know nothing about ARFID.
No,
nothing
I can imagine.
at all. And like I was trying to explain to the head teacher, who's a lovely person, the situation, the reasons why I am going to have to do what I'm saying I'm going to have to do and take him out of school. And she was saying, well, that's the easy option, isn't it? And I was like, you're not listening to me. It's not the easy option.
Nothing is easy about any of this.
100%. It feels completely, I'm going against the complete grain of society as we know it, of having our children in school, but also life for us as a family. Rory not being at school, it makes it 10 times, 1,000 times harder, you know. So I had that as well, but I just knew he had to come out of school because I knew that was what was causing this. So I did, and I you know, it was a hard one for me and my husband as well because, you know, it feels wrong, it feels tricky, it feels hard, you know, and if it wasn't for the support of Mascot that I got from them and lots of other ladies that were helping me there, sort of just saying, you know, you just got to go with your gut, and I did. And it was so lucky because I went, he was weeks away from having to go to hospital and they were already saying that when I was speaking to his doctor, and they were looking at his like BMIs because he dropped 2 BMIs in that time. They were just like, you know, this absolutely can't continue. And they were discussing about bringing him back into hospital again. And it was only when we'd actually got the ARFID diagnosis, they actually said to us how close he was to getting a stomach peg, whereby he's too big now to have something up his nose and to be fed through his nose. It would actually be a peg in his tummy where we'd literally have to feed him intravenously that way, which opens up a whole more challenges and you know, for Rory more than anything. And you know, I just think, is education worth that? No. I'd rather him eat, right? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you 100% made the right call. But but people don't see this. Do they?
Not at all. I mean,
people don't understand. It's just there's a generation of people that are like, well, just eat a sandwich. So
exactly. And that's what school was like. And still, even when I was trying to get his EHCP, like I said earlier about taking the pictures of the packed lunchboxes, I don't know why I did it. I've had fights before with EHCPs and the local authority and schools, and I just know to collect evidence. Even when I feel it, I should collect it, I do it from now on. That's my thing, right? And I'm so lucky I did, because when I was fighting for his EHCP, the local authority wouldn't even allow me to put anything about ARFID in until he got his diagnosis, and the school actually said in a meeting that he used to eat his lunch. And I was like, eh? He never used to eat his lunch. And they were like, yeah, he used to eat his lunch, used to eat loads. I'm like, no, he never. Like, honestly. And I was just like, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if the school they just see it as a failure and it's a protection thing for them. Because these are nice people. This school, I've been in schools with my bigger boy where they haven't been nice people. But when the shit comes to the forefront, at the end of the day, no one's going to put your child as a priority except for you. So when it came to the crunch, apparently he was eating shitloads at school. So luckily I'd taken loads of these video diaries of his packed lunchbox. So no one could say that he was, because I had the evidence that he wasn't, you know. So anyway, basically we'd managed to get his EHCP. He was out of school, which kind of massively helped with that, because you know, he's out of school, right? So they've got to prioritise his EHCP. So that was done, and then all the while that was happening, Seaside View put us forward for the sensory eating, if you like, department in Seaside View. They've got like a department for like older children, and they've got for like children that are like overweight, and then they've got like a department for parents of children that are struggling with sensory issues and stuff. But Seaside View in Brighton do not have a facility for ARFID. They cannot. It's viewed as too complex. So we were referred to the Evelina Centre up in Guy's and St Thomas's in London, and they were brilliant. You go in there, you get a multidisciplinary team, and I love how you walk into that room and they've got all the professionals there. You talk about your child, with your child there, they see your child. I mean, Rory literally walked Paul, my husband, carried him in on his back, and then he just sort of sat him on his lap, and Rory was in a ball with his hands over his ears the entire time. So, you know, they could see and they could hear us. And, you know, when we spoke about his food, and And they do these things like they have like a box of what you would think are children's go-to snacks, like crisps and chocolate and sweeties.
Yeah.
There's no way Rory was getting off Paul's lap, let alone even going anywhere near the food. Do you know what I mean? And it was just obvious, and they were brilliant, and they did take a lot of history from us, and right from when he was little, right up to present day, from him being out of school, and but how bad it got to, and then they were like, they go away, they come back again and bring in other professionals, they go away again, and then they said he definitely reaches the criteria for diagnosis, and by that time I was actually expecting it. So, but it's like anything, Mark, like I've been in these situations so many times with our kids where they've got a diagnosis for something, and I've been expecting it, but
of course.
It hits you like a bus always. And with Rory, it just felt like absolutely massive for him and for me as well, because it's an eating disorder. He's been diagnosed with it. You hear all these scary things anyway about eating disorders and stuff. And I would say I'm quite an experienced neurodivergent mum now, being as my eldest 16. However, they're all different. They are all different. And with Rory, I feel like I'm learning all over again. Rory may as well be my only child, if you like, my first child, because what I've learned from Connor and what I've learned from Poppy, none of it, especially with food, and be transferable to it.
So did the Evelina then kind of put you on the path to sort of reintroducing food and
so like I was saying at the very beginning, so one of the things I actually found out a few things about it beforehand through the ARFID Facebook group and through Mascot, but so Rory only recently has been diagnosed. That appointment at the Evelina was only a couple of weeks ago, and we're waiting for the diagnostic report from them, which is going to be basically I've said to the LA now and to the school, I want to pause the EHCP, even though it's at tribunal. I've basically just said I don't want to do it yet because the local authority didn't allow me to put anything in about ARFID. So now he's got his diagnosis. I don't want to be calling an annual review to get a school that's better for Rory, that's going to support him with his food disorder, right? I want it done straight away, right now. I do not want him going back into any setting that isn't ARFID savvy. You know what I mean? It has to be ARFID savvy. And because we're living in a day and age where they don't listen to the parent in terms of, they sometimes don't even listen to the professional in terms of saying there's quite probable ARFID with this little lad. They wouldn't even have it in the EHCP. So we've got to start all that again. So Evelina have been really helpful. They're going to send a diagnostic report so we can literally lift that in and have that included in his EHCP. They've basically said that he's going to need a setting when he goes back to school that will not have any lunch times, which is hilarious because I've got one child who has to eat lunch at 12 fucking o'clock. But then I've got a Rory that if you say, it's 12 o'clock, Rory, it's lunchtime, he'll be cowering under the table. He can't have that. He needs to have his little lunchbox that mummy makes with these safe foods, all in different wrappers because he's so concerned about contamination and stuff like that. It has to be on the side, waiting for Rory, for when Rory decides in his completely PDA way that he will have a snack. And if anybody says it's lunchtime, that will be it. He won't eat. So it needs to be in an environment whereby they're going to understand that, and they're going to understand that if you put that pressure on him, my little boy will actively starve himself, and that is what he's doing. So that's number one that they're doing. I'm really happy with that, and that I'm so confident by their support that I've actually paused the EHCP, whereby you'd never do that, would you? You just want it done and get it sorted to the best of your ability, but yeah, so I've done that. And then they basically introduced me to, although I did know a little bit about it, but they supported us a lot more in the idea of food chaining, which is something that we're trying really hard with at the moment.
You mentioned this on a Facebook post that you did, and I was really interested in it. And someone else explained what it was, and because we've got a similar thing with Jay. I mean, I don't think it's as extreme as ARFID, but there's certainly elements of he'd rather starve than eat something that is not exactly to his taste, and not feeling hungry and not really wanting to eat. And so I've been interested in this concept of food chaining, because he's getting more and more restrictive in his safe foods. And I think the more dysregulated he gets, so where he's at the moment, he is, I think we've recognised in autistic burnout, he's had a horrible year, and we've had a horrible year as a result of it. And so he's more and more restricted in what he'll eat. So this idea of food chaining was really interesting to me. Just explain it to people who don't know what that is.
Yeah, so basically you start off with their safe foods. So your Jay will have his foods where you think, right, when Jay is in the green zone, if you like, when he is not by any other means dysregulated or going to be dysregulated, if he is in a safe zone, he will eat his safe food. So for Rory, how I got him onto pasta stars, because Rory never ate pasta ever. He did not like pasta. He was not going to eat pasta at all. So how I got him onto pasta was that I used his safe food, his staple, which was a jacket potato. So jacket potato, butter and cheese. If you mix it up, Rory will eat that. You're guaranteed about 5 baby spoonfuls of that for Rory, 100%. As long as he's safe and green and stuff. So what I did with the pasta stars, it depends on your child, but for Rory, if you hide anything, you lose that confidence he has in you. And
yes, it's trust, isn't it? It's about trust. He needs to know you're on his side.
Absolutely. So what I did do, I took my heart in my mouth and I took him to Sainsbury's, just me and him. And we went along to the pasta shelf. I figured to myself, right, he doesn't like anything too big in his mouth. So I knew it'd have to be little. So when we were literally just being breezy, walking up the pasta aisle, I basically got him looking at these pasta stars. And I said, oh, look, Rory, these pasta stars are really little, aren't they? And we could do your butter and cheese, just like you do in your jacket potato. And he was like, oh, maybe, Mummy. And I said, shall we put them in the trolley? And he was like, yeah, okay. And he zapped them with the thing, and I didn't say anything more about it.
No,
and then
but
when
inside
we got home,
you must have been absolutely just fizzing with excitement, right?
Absolutely. I was like, well, every time we get any sort of mini success with this story, I feel like crying. I get so happy. I feel like crying because,
but also you have to keep cool, because otherwise you'll sense it.
Because if you show that, exactly. You can't show anything like that. But inside I'm thinking, yay, this is a little lad that, is 9, but he's the size of a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and he's so close to having a tummy peg. He's eating pasta stars. He's put pasta stars in the fucking trolley. But, so we got back and he got a little egg pot, and it's teeny tiny, and I boiled a few of these pasta stars, put them in butter, which was what the ARFID nutritionist said at the hospital, do everything in butter because it's extra calories and stuff. So and he likes butter because of jacket potato. So we do everything gets a lace of butter in it and stuff. But the idea of food chaining is that you like butter, you like cheese. So instead of the potato, we're just going to take the potato out and we're going to put in some pasta stars. And he went for it and he tried it and he was like, oh yeah, Mummy, they're okay, aren't they? But that would never work if he wasn't in his safe space and he wasn't.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? The environment is such a huge part of it, isn't it? It's making sure. Like I've noticed that when Jade is sort of a bit more restricted, it's because he's feeling dysregulated as a whole, but also it could be just that there's too much going on. Like Otto in India might be in the room and making noise, and he's like, no, he'll just walk out. Or the dishwasher might be going, or the washing machine might be going off. And so it's not just the food.
It's also like coming to the table. Both my boys find really hard, like the social aspect of Rory says, I don't like coming to the table, Mummy. I eat better when I don't. And he said that he's 9, so you have to just go. ARFID is just another learning curve. And I'm pleased that they renamed it, because it used to be called sensory eating disorder or something like that, or selective eating disorder it used to be called.
Yes, but the word selective is problematic.
Which basically picky. That's what it basically sounds like.
They're not choosing to do this.
Exactly. So when they changed it to ARFID, I was very happy with, because it is exactly that. It's avoidance, restrictive food intake disorder, because that is it. They will avoid and they will restrict until the environment, the safe foods, everything around them ticks that box.
It's the food version of EBSA, right? They're not choosing to not go into school because they don't fancy it. They're literally filled with terror and dread and anxiety, and their nervous system has kicked in.
Mild avoidance, and it's just like, 100%. And it's also, you mentioned food disorder, like eating disorder to anybody. Immediately people think of anorexia and bulimia. Yeah. Rory's a 9-year-old little boy. He walks around the house naked half the time. He doesn't care what he looks like. There is no way that little boy is looking in the mirror and saying, I am fat, and that's why I can't eat. My fear for the future is that he's 9. He hasn't even approached teenagerdom yet, where we're like in the throes of it with Connor and Poppy. And I do worry about like the future for him, and like when he's having a bad day or a bad time or some, what teenagers have and experience, is he just not going to eat? That's my concern. That's my major concern that I have for him in the future.
But all you can do is just research it and understand it and fight for it, and you're doing that. Yeah. It's genuinely amazing, Dee. The amount that you've kind of gone through to get to this stage is incredible. So thank you for sharing that, because it's
no worries.
It's not an easy one to talk about, is it?
It's not, because I feel like you've got, like, as I said before, you have like the funny moments of it, but it got serious really quickly with Rory. And I was looking at, well, it was only when he got his diagnosis, when the doctor at the Evelina said to me about how close he was. They basically said, if you presented Rory to me now, like he was in October, I'd be putting him in for surgery to get a tummy peg. And when she gave us the diagnosis, it was a really poignant moment, actually, because she was so kind and lovely. And she just started off by saying, everyone wants to recognise basically that you and your husband, I know it wasn't easy for you to take him out of school, but you possibly have saved his life, but definitely has saved some life-altering surgery for him. And, it wasn't an easy decision taking him out of school. It really wasn't. And it goes against everything that society push on you.
You've got to trust your gut, though, haven't you?
Honestly, that's the one thing I've taken. The broad lesson I've taken from having 3 neurodivergent children is you have to go with your gut. There is nobody that knows your baby like you do. Nobody, no professional, nobody. And you have to go with your gut. And I'm so pleased I did, because God knows what we've been looking at now, and like, nothing's worth that. So and you know what? It's a happy story, because he is a happy little boy. Firstly, he's always been either not on a centile at all or just on the first centile. But the first time in his little life, he's on the second centile now of weight.
Nice.
He's still very, very little, bless him, but he is getting bigger. Like, I carried him the other day and I felt a little bit of weight there, and I know that he's gone up in weight, and it is emotional. It's emotional because of how far we've come, and when I think about where we could have been. So I'm really super proud of him, and above all else, he's a happy little boy. And if he's a happy little boy eating chicken nuggets every day, like he'd quite happily do from his little Happy Meal, then fair play, because one of the things that they teach you at the Evelina is there are no such thing as bad calories with these kids. You have to rub everything else that you've got taught over the years. I mean, I was like, when I first had Connor, I was an Annabelle Carmel mum, like you've got to feed him this and that and all sorts of stuff. But now it's like, he'll eat what he eats, and that's better than him starving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I talk about a lot in Neuroshambles is you've just got to write your own guidebook for each individual child, and it doesn't matter what people say should be the norm in their handbooks, because we know them, as you say, better than anyone else. And you just write your own care instructions.
I think as parents of our kids, when you start off on your journey, well, certainly with Connor, if I would have made different decisions, I would be a completely different mum now to him than I was when I was first starting out, because I listened to everything that everybody said, a teacher or a doctor or whatever, and you assume that they know more than you. If there's a little voice inside you saying, I know that won't work, I know this is best for my baby, you got to listen to it. You really do, because it scares me. It does scare me as a mum of a little 9-year-old boy that got that close. If he was my first child, would I have listened to that head teacher saying, you're just taking the easy option. And would I have not taken him out?
Yeah.
And then where we would have been, so you have to go with your gut.
One of the most stressful things about my kids' selective eating, restrictive eating, however you want to define it, is the drama of trying out new food. Just the sense of trepidation when you have to try and expose them to new stuff, because it's something that Tam and I do try to do, is even if we know they're not going to eat it, we're going to put it out there. You've got to, because occasionally something might stick. I mean, very rarely, but we do try and expose them to new stuff. So although we don't put an expectation to try it, we're definitely not the old school, put it on the plate and you sit there until it's eaten. But I mean, Jay, like, he'll never eat a Yorkshire pudding, for example, or he'll never eat a roast potato, but I will always put one on his plate if I'm making a Sunday roast, right? And, he will ignore it. Now, he's got to the point where he knows that I'm going to put it on there. I know he's not going to eat it. This little game we play. But it's important to just kind of have it available if, for whatever reason, the wind is blowing the right direction and he decides to give it a go. But it's when there are new things that I find really stressful. So Tam does the menus for the week, right? I do most of the cooking. Tam does the menus. So when I see the menu for the week and I see a new dish on there, my heart fucking sings. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I know this isn't going to work. And also, Tam knows this isn't going to work as well. But it's with part of that deal of, like, we're trying new things. We've got to give it a go because we can't keep doing the same thing all the time, right? So I'm cooking it. As I'm cooking it, I'm going, this is never going to fly. They're never going to go for this. Like,
I recognise that feeling.
And then you call them down and just that moment where before they come into the room, it's like, I know, this is like, it is, I might as well go, kids, I've shat on your plate. Because I know the reaction when they come in is going to they're appalled by it. Jay very often will take one look at it and walk out again. Like, no,
that's Poppy.
He's off.
Poppy doesn't hide her disgust. She'll just be like, what's that? And you're like, oh, I've made you aubergine curry, my darling.
I dared to dream, sweetheart.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like, I'm not eating that. And then she'll just go off and, like, get a packet of crisps and that'll be it. And then, like, but with Cons, it's more of a, like, what the fuck is that, you bitch?
But will he eat it, though?
No, if it's okay. Not a Connor food, he won't eat it. No, but
Otto gets anxiety around it. Like, he will panic and he'll start kind of getting really upset. India will just sit there and stare at it and not really eat it. Yeah, and then it's usually the question is, what's for pudding? Pudding? Because at least I know that, okay, I know you're going to eat that.
So I've given up with pudding, to be fair, because I've just given up with it.
I mean, sometimes that's all I've got.
So
they're not going to eat. I'm like, well, you're going to get hungry. So, I'll try something relatively healthy, like a granola bar or something like that. Or a bit of fruit also counts. Apples. Get the apples out, right?
As they're older, they tend to just, like, the bigger ones, they tend to just, like, get their own stuff. But Rory he's super fussy about pudding as well, as Rory. I think he likes the idea of pudding, but when you put it in front of him, it's like, no.
At a time where a new dish comes out and that they're not on board with it, then the crackers do a lot of heavy lifting there. The cream crackers.
Yeah,
it's like, okay.
I know that Rory is just like never going to go for it, but sometimes I get really excited.
This is the thing. It's like when I give food to Jay in particular, right? Jay is very critical of me in many ways. When I present food to him, it's like giving it to Gordon Ramsay. That moment where he's just like, this, I put my heart and soul into this. I just want you to say that the flavouring's okay. Say it's been well seasoned and that it's been presented nicely. At least give me something. And he'll just look at it and he'll give it a sniff as if he can sense it's being poisoned, right? I've not poisoned it. It's just a new thing, right? He'll give it a sniff and then he'll stick his tongue out Very like he won't touch it with his tongue yet. He's like a cat. You know, cats kind of just lick around the food just to get a sense of what it is they're dealing with. Yeah, he's like a snake. He'll like lick the air around it, and I'd be like, and then he might give it the tiniest touch of the tongue, and then immediately it's like, nah. No, he'll put it down and have a massive drink of water, like it's like the worst
you're doing
thing.
well. Rory would literally get up off the table, run to the bin as if his life depends on it, and then spit it out. All my hard work is now in the bin, and the littlest Caesar has given me the thumbs down.
There's this thing though. Do you feel guilt about the wasted food? I feel terrible about wasting food. Like I still do to a degree.
To be honest, that's the least of my problems with my lot. I just think with Rory, if he eats it, he eats it. And I've kind of given up with the whole wasting of food. I do feel bad, but I
started sort of taking a hit for the team and eating the leftovers, which is not great. It's not great because it's cold at this point, because they've obviously left it for ages until it's got cold and congealed. So it's never at its best anyway. But I felt the guilt. So I was like, I don't want it to go to waste. And then we just coined a term in our house. It's like, that doesn't go in the normal bin, that goes in the dad bin.
Dad bin,
I was the dad bin.
We've got a dad bin. My husband doesn't do too badly there, but I think Connor will hoover up some stuff as well if it's his sort of food and stuff. I think like in terms of like feeling like just the worst sort of person ever with food, I think you can do that quite a lot. Like when you're thinking about, oh God, I'm just a crap parent because I'm wasting food. It's more of a case of like the stuff that they're eating, really. I mean, with Rory, it's a different kettle of fish anyway, because now we've got his diagnosis. I wear it as a badge of honour. I'm like, fuck you, it's ARFID.
Yeah.
You can't have a go at me anymore for his chicken nuggets.
No, I know what you mean, that there is that element. Now, I mean, from our perspective, Jay actually does eat he's got quite a healthy palate. He quite likes, like I was saying, like herbs and cucumbers, his big thing. He's like massive into cucumber. It's really weird. And there are times where, like Jay in particular, will from nowhere show an interest in something. And like there was the fateful day where he was like, I want to try seafood. I was like, okay, right, quick, no one panic. Okay, I'm going to go and get some seafood. I went we were in Brighton, right? So we near like the sea. So I went to the fucking seafood place and got I got a bit of everything. I was like, dude, we might find, because he didn't specify what seafood. So I was like, I'm going to try them all. So I got loads of stuff and I brought it back and I was cooking it. But obviously everything needs to be prepared and cooked in totally different ways. But I fucking went for it. I was like, something might stick, and it's worth all of this effort if one thing sticks. So I was there and I was like, I got squid, I got mussels, I got crab, I got scallops, I got mackerel, trying it all. And I put it in front of Jay. He didn't try anything. None of it. He just looked at it and went, I don't like the smell. It's like,
so close.
The dad bin was pretty full that day.
I bet. Well, it's not, at least it's seafood, right? It's yummy. But like, I know what you mean about the supermarket fucking sweet. I remember one time Rory said something like, I don't remember what it was now. He just said something that he wanted. And I was literally like, out of the way, people! Get to Sainsbury's. The boy wants to eat good food. I mean, like, everything stops, doesn't it? You're like, the one that never eats has decided that he wants to try something. So that's happening today.
I mean, just this week, Jay threw a massive fucking curveball where he went, I want to try eating spruce tips.
What?
Exactly. What? I was like, what the hell are spruce tips? Right? And he went, I've watched this video on YouTube where someone has eaten all of a Christmas tree, every part of a Christmas tree, and he decided he wanted to try eating spruce tips. Which is
the internet's got a lot to answer
it's got a lot to answer for. He was like, I want to try spruce tip beer, but it's not actual beer. But It's impossible to get hold of. But I was like, at first, I was like, yeah, well, you're on. I'll find it. I'll fucking grow a blue spruce tree if I fucking have to, just to get this to happen. I can't find it. It's a nightmare. And also I know that when I present it to him, here, son, it's taken me 14 years to grow this spruce tree, and I boiled down the tips into a spruce brew, and finally it's here. And he'd be like, nah, I don't like the smell.
I don't like the smell of it, Dad. And you won't, well, you'll have to have it in the dad bin again.
Oh, I don't fancy it. I don't fancy it, but like, it's Christmas tree flavoured. I mean, no. I want to bring us back to safe foods, because I think every parent of neurodivergent kids has this list, whether it's written down, because I've actually written it down, a list of safe foods, green
I've
foods
got one of those, yeah.
and red foods, right? So these are ones that we know, dude, this is our go-to, and that will cause the least amount of anxiety. So you do have those moments sometimes when something can get added to the safe foods list. That happens very rarely. Very rarely, but every now and again,
it's so exciting when it does.
It's like a massive thing. It's a huge thing, and I don't think neurotypical families don't have this. They don't have a fucking list of things that like just gonna go to the safe list. They will try stuff out, and if people don't eat much of it, then they're fine. But it's like a massive thing. But nothing really beats the crushing disappointment of having to take something off the safe list.
Oh, that's awful, isn't it?
And I've had like several things like have been absolute go-tos. Fish pie, weirdly, at one point in my life, all of the kids loved fish pie.
Oh, I love fish pie.
It was a bit of a faff to cook because it took quite a long time. But
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
dude, I'm on board with it. We'll do it. And I did it. And then it was almost like they'd had a meeting before that meal. And they all just went, no more. This will never do. And so I was, really? Are you sure? Because it's on the list. It's on the safe list. No, they all put their foot down collectively.
Oh, so that's such a shame because I love fish pie. My lot don't like fish pie, but they also don't like fish fingers at all. That's like, we don't do fish fingers in our house. And I tell you what, it's annoying when there is a safe food, because my kids did eat fish fingers and then they had them at school and they're like, no, these are shit fish fingers. But they were so shit that they scarred them that much they cannot eat fish fingers
They've ruined
anymore.
the whole concept of fish fingers for them forevermore. That's unforgivable.
Absolutely unforgivable. So not even fish fingers anymore.
Spaghetti bolognese used to be a safe food, right? So Jay doesn't eat a great deal of different things, but spaghetti bolognese was high on the list, and India also ate spaghetti bolognese. Otto wouldn't, but it's pasta, right? So I'll just make some pasta and I'll whack some pesto in it, and he will moan about it, but he will eat it. So fine, because Otto is a bit, he'll just sort of tolerate stuff a bit more. But now I keep getting criticised of giving them spaghetti bolognese too much. It's like, but there are 4 safe foods I've got, right? And there are 7 days in a week. So where can I go? I said to Jay, I will gladly cook you a different meal every single day of the year if you will eat them. If you tell me that you will give it a go. But you've left me no options. It's spaghetti bolognese.
Yep. That's what Rory says. If I do, I can't. That's why I can't do my jam sandwich anymore at dinner time. He loves jam sandwiches, always has done. When he was younger, he used to just lick off the jam and leave the bread. But now we've progressed to eating just the insides of the bread, no like crusts or anything like that. But the other day, he got really upset with me because we were eating something else. There's no way in hell's chance that Rory would eat it. So I got the jam sandwich and popped it, and he was like, well, I'm a bit sad. I was like, why is that then? Well, you've got dinner, haven't you? And you've just given me this jam sandwich. You've just, given me a jam sandwich for dinner, haven't you? It's not even hot, is it? It's just a jam sandwich.
So judgmental. You're not even trying now, Mum, are you?
Exactly. It's just like, have you not met you? Do you know what I mean?
Oh man, it's a fucking nightmare. I got told off by Jay for giving him the same packed lunch every day as well. It's like the same reason. Like, that's all you eat. I've like the fact I've managed to construct this thing that you will eat most of every day
is
to me staggering, because we've auditioned every single compartment in that lunchbox, so I know exactly what you want.
I know. So with Connor, when he was at school, when he was in his little specialist centre in the school, if I didn't do him a packed lunch, I had to email his key worker in the morning to tell him, shit happens. I haven't got anything for lunch for Connor. I'm afraid to say you're going to have to deal with it, basically. Nice. And I could almost hear the collective groan as that email was received, because what they actually had to do was not only sponsor Cons and go with him to the canteen and get his food and make sure he didn't queue and bring him back to eat there and whatnot. But no, in the morning they had to go and speak to the chef who did the school meals.
I love it. He goes to meet the chef. He goes, "Can I see the specials board, please?"
Yes. But unfortunately, he hasn't got a packed lunch.
And the wine list, if you would.
Yes, exactly.
It's funny, isn't it? Because it's like that when you're eating at someone else's house as well. When someone goes, "Oh yeah, I'll cook for you guys," and it's like, dude, you don't know what you've just taken on there. Because sometimes, Jay will go over for a play date to his friend Lily's, and the dad is he's such a lovely guy, and he really wants to look after him. So he's like, "I'll cook him whatever he wants." I've got this on the menu, and it's like, I just have to sort of temper his expectations. Like, he's not going to eat what you cook. And I really don't want you to get offended by that, okay? It's not you. It's just that there's a number of things going on. He's not going to eat it. Don't take it personally. He does every time.
Unfortunately, you have to say. But with Rory as well, Rory does come with a caveat of a list of safe foods, and please do not try and give him anything else, because if you fuck it up for me, I will come for you.
Because sometimes I'm like, you know what? If he doesn't eat, that's okay. He'll come back. He'll come back and have crackers.
100%. One of the mums said to me, she was like, "Oh God, I'm so sorry, but all he's ate is half a packet of hula hoops." I'm like, "Well done."
Dude, I'll take that. Yeah, nice work. I'm proud of you.
Yes, hula hoops are not on his list. How did you do that?
Well, awesome. You've just added something to the safe foods list. Incredible. Sometimes that it is Jay can be quite withering about other people's food as well, which is mortifying. And this is one of my favourite things that he's ever said. He went to his grandma's house. His grandma's Italian, but she's a very proud Italian, and they like to feed and they like to put everything on the table, and it's a big source of pride to them. And she got the prosciutto ham out and she put it on the table, and she was like, try that, it's lovely, try the prosciutto. And he took it and he gave it a bit of a sniff, obviously, and he gave it a lick, and then he went, "This tastes of swamp ham." Swamp ham was how he characterised the delicacy of prosciutto.
What did she say?
She wasn't offended. I think she just sort of moved it away from him and didn't offer it him again, because she's familiar with his vibe anyway.
That's cool though, isn't it?
But it was just so I now always and forevermore will refer to prosciutto as swamp ham.
Oh, bless you, poor thing. I do get it though, because society as a whole have just given up on the McMahons, really. No. Which is cool, fair enough, I can understand.
But do you ever have it the other way around? Do you have people come over to your house?
No, we used to.
Seriously, they should do that. They should have some kind of service where neurotypical kids come over to neurodivergent parents' houses and just eat food. Just so we've got, because the amount of pride that we put into this food, Dee, I don't know if you're like me, the amount of pride and effort you put into it, you just to have someone eat, just even try it or finish it out of obligation. I think it'd be good for us. It'd be good for our soul. They should pair us up with, there must be kids that need a good meal, right? Kids that they can't afford to eat. It's like, dude, I got fucking food. It's going in the dad bin. Hop on board.
I know.
It's all in up for the dad bin. I would love it.
Dad bin's just getting bigger and bigger.
Dad bin is now like a bin. He's shaped like a bin. It's not good. There's definitely my pride gets wounded every time I offer some food up that I've spent time cooking and I think is going to be tolerable, and just the disdain with which it was received is
I know,
just
especially if you have to
heartbreaking,
cook
isn't it?
like sometimes 3 different variants of that
Not
one
sometimes,
meal.
Dee, all the
Yeah,
fucking time.
you know,
Every single meal needs 3
100%.
variants.
But sometimes it's like, I don't know about you, but it's not always different variants. Sometimes, well, especially with Rory, there's loads of meals that he will just not entertain any variant.
Yeah.
So I'm having to cook something like a spicy version for Connor, a not spicy version for Poppy, and a completely fucking different version for Rory, which doesn't involve any of the ingredients and completely different ingredients.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
oh God. I
Yeah, that
know.
happens a lot. Yeah, and that's admin. That's just the extra admin that is this unspoken admin that parents of neurodivergent kids have. Like cooking 3 meals a day. Sorry, 3 meals per mealtime.
I know.
9 meals a day.
Yeah. So
Or preparing 9 meals a day of various different ilks and like... and also just understanding the individual foibles of each person that's dining just is so fucking stressful.
It's like the meal prepped, shopping list. A shopping list.
Oh God!
Right.
Yeah.
I have to take a fucking anti-anxiety tablet before I even do a shopping list because it's hard work, right? Because you've got to do the meal plan.
I've been putting that off this week. So Tam is away this week, and it's my turn to do I'm doing the shopping, right, and the meal plan, which I don't often do, and I've been putting it off for days. It's like it's about to reach the cutoff, but I can't face it. I can't bring myself to do it because that sense of, oh God, there's so many variants that I have to consider.
I know what I've started doing actually is doing the opposite of that. So now I'm constantly fucking doing it because I'm thinking, right, I need to manage this better. So I'm constantly thinking about food and how I'm going to manage it and how I'm going to feed everyone and tick all the boxes. I'm living in Sainsbury's. I swear to God, I live there. I'm always in fucking Sainsbury's. I'm in Sainsbury's so much. I swear I'm in Sainsbury's more than the people that work in Sainsbury's for various reasons. But it is just mad amounts of time and energy you put into feeding these creations that you've brought into the world.
Yeah, and even then it's going to get rejected.
It's not all rubbish.
Okay, so with any episode of Neuroshambles, I like to look at the positive side of things. And one of the recent positives that we've got in our house, because, there aren't many positives with their attitude to food, but for some reason, both Jay and India are now really into cooking food. Jay thinks of himself as this amazing chef. He's got this great notion that he's an incredible chef. Jay doesn't have any idea of the theory of food, of what works, what goes together, how you prepare things. He just has a go, and that's it's fine. But we obviously actively encourage him to do this, because it's important. And India really likes cooking as well, which is really nice. And she'll help me make the pizza dough on a Saturday and stuff, and that's all good. Jay had a phase of making chocolate sponge cakes as well. He didn't know how to make a chocolate cake. He doesn't know the first thing about chocolate cake. So he'd make it and it would be rubber. It was fucking awful. Talk about the texture, issues with texture. I had a big issue with texture that day. It was so awful and kind of rubbery. And he also doesn't eat it himself. A lot of the time, the things he cooks, he doesn't eat.
Oh, yes. That's what, Poppy. Poppy's like that. Poppy will just, go on, a TikTok whim. But she does make a very good brownie. She does. She's better at baking than me, I would say. And I like to think I'm a good little baker. But she's got a natural affinity with cakes, bless her. So she will make a good brownie. And the boys, they're a success. The boys will eat the brownies. So,
okay, that's awesome. Nice.
Oh, you're doing well. That's good that they're liking their cooking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not liking their cooking. That's the bigger problem. But we can move on to that maybe another time.
Neurodiversity champions.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the neurodiversity champions section of the podcast next.
Okay.
So this is where we sort of talk about organisations or individuals who are doing amazing things to kind of accommodate neurodivergency. Do you have any neurodiversity champions that you want to mention, Dee?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned them earlier, didn't we? The Evelina for
Yeah.
anything remotely more complex that involves an eating disorder, I think they've just been brilliant. They are really good, I have to say. And then also you can't forget Mascot, because
I know they were mentioned on episode 1 of the first season, and it feels fitting that episode 1 of the second season they get another shout out. But they are local to Brighton. Well, it's Sussex, isn't it? It's East and West Sussex, I think, and other people kind of come in as well.
For me, it's always been the lady that is the main director, Sam
Bailey.
Her lad, she's obviously had her own journey with him and stuff. And what struck me the most about Sam is her willingness to look behind her and just help the people that are behind her.
Yeah.
Then she didn't need to do that. You know what I mean? And like for me, am I going to do that? I'd love to think I would, but I'd be in some retreat somewhere, like fucking getting over the trauma.
Maybe this is the way that Sam gets over the trauma. Who knows?
Yeah, just by helping people.
Yeah.
I mean, what a woman. What a woman. She's just amazing. And I've always got the utmost respect for her because of her ability to do that. And a lot of people say to me, Dee, you should do something in like working with that sort of thing. And my first response is, fuck no.
I haven't got the energy.
I would not, and will never not, basically, because why would I ever? Like, but the fact that she is doing it, but also doing it on a voluntary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That is the thing with Mascot, is that they are, you know, a charitable organisation and do always kind of suffer from a lack of funding. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the show notes for anyone who wants to learn a little bit more about Mascot. And if you want to donate anything to Mascot to help them keep going, they have been so important to our life and to your life, Dee, and to many other people's lives.
I mean, our family alone is just, we're just one of 2,000 families now there on Mascot, and they've been brilliant, I have to say. They've been really good.
That's an excellent shout out. I'll take that one.
Tiny epic wins!
Okay, on to the tiny epic wins. Now, these are little things that would seem quite small in a neurotypical household, but for a neurodivergent family, they're massive. Have you got any sort of tiny epic wins this week?
I think we sort of touched onto it, but when Connor actually manages to do anything in the kitchen whatsoever, that's quite good. And as I say, recently he has managed to unload the dishwasher, albeit with gloves on and all. So, but that is an epic win for us.
That's amazing.
Super happy with that. We'll take that. For Rory, is just basically anything that he shows us a sign of eating is just a fucking amazing, basically.
Yeah, no, absolutely worth celebrating.
There's been plenty of times where he's like ate something, or actually been able to be at the table where something that's freaked him out before, and he's been able to sit at the table or anything like that. And it's actually brought me to tears, because they are tiny wins for other people, but huge wins.
Yeah.
Huge wins for us, you know.
Yeah, I don't think it's a surprise that a lot of the tiny epic wins that we've had from Neuroshambles have been people saying, like Hattie Ashdown going, he tried a potato. I can't believe it. It's about trying new foods and that kind of thing, which is, they very often are those things. My tiny epic win actually relates to Jay. And it is relating to him being in the kitchen, right? He's just started really loving cooking me omelettes for breakfast, right?
Oh, bless him.
And so I don't quite know how this evolved, but he's watched me cook an omelette for breakfast, and he's decided that he wanted to give it a go. So for whatever reason, he went, can I cook you an omelette? It's like, yeah, of course you can. Yeah, that'd be amazing. I'll sit down with my cup of tea. And not only did he start cooking me an omelette, he took guidance from me, right? He doesn't do that, right? But he did it. And It was a better omelette than I make. It was
Wow.
amazing. It was
You've got
really
a little
good.
chef there, Mark.
He loves it. He was
Good.
really getting on. Like, so now what happens is that I will wait. I won't eat my breakfast until everyone else is out the kitchen. So Otto and India have eaten and they're gone. And then I'll call Jay down and go, I fancy an omelette. And he runs down the stairs to do it. And it is amazing. Like, he really owns it. And he really takes pride. He's got this little silver plate that he found on the street, right? It's his special plate. He always plates it up on this special little silver platter, and he puts a little sprig of herbs on the top.
He put a little bit of herbage. Oh, bless him. How lovely. God, I wish I had a son that could make me an omelette. Lucky thing.
The other day, though, he did spill the salt on it and leave it all on there. He spilled like loads of salt on it. We were like, I'll be fine. I nearly had a heart attack. Did you eat it
anyway?
Well, yeah, you can't reject it now, can you? So I sort of scraped it off as much as I could, but it was a salty bitch to eat. But it was fine. I'll do it for Jay.
What the flip?
Okay, the final bit of this section is the what the flip moments. These are moments where your children will do or say something that completely throws you as a parent. You don't really know how to respond. So I've got 2 food related ones from Jay. One of them is we've got a blackcurrant bush in our garden, which is great. But as you know, we've got this sort of fruit is fraught with danger, right? Because 2 blackcurrants could taste totally different. And he quite likes munching on blackcurrants, but he found one and he munched on it. And he went, these blackcurrants taste awful. It's like eating a sour octopus. That was one. He should be a food reviewer. I think that would be really like, he would come up with some very inventive stuff to destroy a chef. And the other one is we had some smoked salmon in the house. India and Otto both quite like smoked salmon, but I offered it to Jay and he was appalled. He was appalled by the idea that I had offered him smoked salmon. And I said, but Jay, some people consider smoked salmon a delicacy. And he went, not to me. A true delicacy is the humble water.
The humble water.
The humble water. That is his true delicacy. Just water, not smoked salmon.
I think my first what the flip moment with Connor was when he was young, but he was well into his food, and snack time was well established to be 10:30 and 2:30, either side of 12 o'clock. But one day I was aware that it was like 2:30 and I hadn't been berated for not getting any snacks and stuff. So I went and found said child who was in the garden and I was like, do you not want a snack? And he turned around and he had little wings coming out of his mouth where he's like, no, Mummy, I've had a fly snack.
Like he won't eat a tomato, but a fly, absolutely crack on.
Go for. So yeah, he had his little fly snack. Bless him. It was just like shocking. That is. I was just like,
it's all protein, Dee. It's all protein. So that is it. I think we've exhausted the topic of food. We've got a lot off our chests. I think it's been quite cathartic. It's therapy, right?
It's a bit therapeutic, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. That's why I do this, Dee. It's the only reason. But that does bring us to the end of this episode of Neuroshambles. So firstly, I'm going to say a massive thank you to Dee for sharing your world. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to me. Also, massive thank you to you, the audience. Welcome back to the new season of Neuroshambles, and I hope you've enjoyed this one. And there's lots more exciting stuff planned for the rest of the season. We also are on the socials. I'm on Threads and Facebook, not Reddit anymore. That died. And I'm also on Instagram as well. I'm also considering going on to TikTok, but that's a big step into the world. I'm not sure I'm ready yet, but we'll get there eventually. But look out for that. I will let you know, of course. If you've got anything that you want to share with me, if you've got any what the flip moments that you think I should read out on the show, please let me know. Email me at hello@neuroshambles.com. Or if you've got any ideas of any topics that you want to cover, then again, just email me and I will happily consider them. All right, I think that's it. Thank you so much. And all that remains for me to say is have a nice life.